Welcome to the latest edition of Battle of the Dunes, the competition where the aim is not only to pay homage and respects to the spectacular Namib Desert in Namibia, but also to see who can scale some of the desert's biggest heaps of sand. For this event, the organizers first headed south of the coastal town of Walvis Bay, all along the beach for 60 kilometers. In places, the gap between the Atlantic Ocean and the dunes wasn't very big. There are a lot of Cape fur seals along this wild coast as well, and each little family of seals has its own jackal. With food and fresh water scarce commodities on the Skeleton Coast, the jackal survives by feeding on the seals. After 60 kilometers of beach driving, the teams arrived at their campsite near Sandwich Harbour. Sandwich Harbour used to be a commercial port for whaling and smaller-sized fishing operations, but it's no longer active. Instead, there's a lot of sand, and a lot of wild Atlantic Ocean. Considering that this camp is located in a sea of sand in the middle of nowhere, it's pretty well equipped. There are toilets and a shower enclosure where, adding hot water to a bucket, showers can be had. As far as campsites go, this is pretty much spectacular. Camping in the heart of the oldest desert on Earth, about 80 kilometers away from the nearest civilization, with the Atlantic Ocean beating against the coast just a short distance away, yep, it's pretty much okay. But enough of that. Let's skip right along to the next morning and the more serious business of tackling some massive dunes. The next morning, it was time to get ready for action, and this process started off with a whole lot of sponsor stickers. This included Vigo, Opposite Lock, Standard Bank, and Snowmaster. After this was completed, it was time for the driver's briefing, courtesy of Uri Adventures frontman Jacques Delporte. And you can see just how experienced he is, finding the best spot in the shade while he delivered his briefing. The safety briefing revolves around 3 ground rules that apply everywhere, except at predetermined dune tests. Those rules are stay in the tracks, and, yep, stay in the tracks. With those details in the bag, it's time to meet the teams and their 4x4s. This is Martin Smit and Karel Zietsman, who hail from the Northwest Province in South Africa. The team is in a Toyota Land Cruiser 70 Bakkie that is powered by the legendary Straight 6 4.5-litre EFI petrol engine. The Land Cruiser 4.5 is a legend in the Namib, and it should do well. Nico, Chuck Grobler, and Niels van de Venter are in a Toyota Land Cruiser 100, also powered by Toyota's Straight 6 4.5-litre petrol engine. The cruiser is fully rigged for overland trips, so it's no lightweight. This is Wouter Krier and Corby van Niekerk, and they are in yet another Land Cruiser. But this is the 4.5-litre V8 D4D, and it's also fitted with a free-flow exhaust system and a performance chip. This single cab just may be the belle of the ball in the sand. Heinrich Achenbach and Jean McKnight are in a Ford Ranger 3.2 TDCi 4x4, with some aftermarket cosmetic kit fitted, but under the skin, it's stock standard. This is Fan de Toy, and he's in an overland Nissan Patrol 4.8 GRX. Fan insisted on keeping his Nissan's biggest party trick under wraps. There's apparently a supercharger that lives under the bonnet, which means this Nissan on steroids should be really, really good in the dunes. Barend Leroux and Hardus Oosthuizen are in another Nissan. Their Navara is the 3-litre turbo diesel 4x4, and it's also being fitted with a performance chip. In standard form, this V9X Navara's traction and stability control tends to intervene and cut power in the sand. Tackling the massive dunes in an equally massive Toyota Land Cruiser 200 are Jaco Mini and Arno Labuskakny. This cruiser is stock standard, and its 173 kilowatt V8 turbo diesel engine will need to shift more than 2 tons up the dunes. With tyres suitably deflated to 0.8 bar, it's time to get some vital practice in as the teams leave the campsite for their first taste of Big Dune driving. This is the first practice dune, and that's Wouter Krier and Kobie van Niekerk in the V8 Cruiser Bakkie. The Cruiser runs out of steam on the first attempt. He has another run at the dune, but oh dear, Wouter misses a downshift and the Cruiser ain't going up there. Attempt number 3. And close, but no cigar yet. Wouter was determined to get up the dune, so he has some more runs. Quite a lot more. So Jaco Minnie and Arno Labuschagne in the Cruiser 200 decided to take up a seat, while Wouter was sorting out gears and speed and torque and revs and so on. Time to head to the shops. When we return, we'll see if Wouter will make it up this pile of sand and see who else will give this dune a go. Welcome back to Battle of the Dunes and the Namib Desert. Before the break, we watched Wouter attempt a large dune during practice. We rejoined the teams at the dune. Wouter decided to throw in the towel and waved the Cruiser 200 through, and off went Jaco and Arno, and they came so close to making it up. They have another run, but again, come up short. In the background, Wouter has found a less challenging route up the dune. Heinrich Achenbach and Gene McKnight in the Ford Ranger also have a go, and they get pretty far up the dune, but just run out of steam. Barend Leroux and Hardus Oosthuizen in the Nissan Navara V9X have a run at the dune. And up they go. And lastly, Martin Smit and Karel Zietsman have a go in the EFI Cruiser, and the Toyota also runs out of juice on the way up the dune. Here's a slightly bigger heap of sand, and first to have a shot is the Nissan Navara V9X. And it almost gets over the bigger dune. Wouter Krier in the Cruiser V8 D4D also comes up short, as does the Ford Ranger of Heinrich Achenbach. Martin Smith's EFI Cruiser with the straight 6 engine just makes it. Cue Van de Toy in the Nissan Patrol 4.8. And remember, Van has a supercharger hidden under the bonnet. Golly, he smoked that dune. But just a few minutes later, after heroically conquering the big dune, Martin's Cruiser was, well, firmly embedded in the Namib. So firmly that it necessitated the first recovery of this battle. In a jiffy, the Cruiser was hooked up to event organizer Werner Skarp's Jeep and extracted from its sandy predicament. With the training day drawing to a close, the teams headed back to their campsite, and it seemed as if everyone was getting into the sandy swing of things. And so dawned the second day of the Battle of the Dunes, and it was the day things were due to get a bit more serious, as the convoy headed to a massive dune for the first challenge proper. The first team to tackle the massive dune is the huge Land Cruiser 200 V8 D4D. Jaco Minnie and Arno Labuschagne decide to go with low range for this steep, long climb. There isn't enough space at the base of the dune to build up 120 kilometers of momentum either, so power to weight ratio is key here. Off goes the Cruiser, pedal to the metal in low range. Up it goes, up it goes, and gets surprisingly far, but it was nowhere near the crest. So how do you think that went, Jaco?
Very well. I think we went quite far up. I don't think it was too bad. I should maybe try a high range.
Martin Smit and Karel Zietsman in the 4.5 Cruiser Bakkie have decided to go the low-range route, and they've also locked the front and rear diffs. And off they go.
Go. Yes.
some other reason there was no power.
There's no driver error.
Yes, all driver error.
Heinrich Achenbach and Gene McKnight are next in the Ford Ranger 3.2 TDCi. After planning a cunning route up the dune, the Ford lads let it rip. In the passenger seat, Gene is on gearbox duty. He has to gear the automatic box down to first gear just at the right moment. Okay, so that wasn't the right moment. In the cabin, a bilateral discussion commences about where exactly first gear, well, where is it?
Eerste daar sien. Sien jy? Jy so, dan sê jy eerste.
Eerste? Ja.
Né? Dis tweede, derde. So gaan dit. Vorentoe is eerste.
Vorentoe is eerste. Ja.
As jy vorentoe gedruk het. Maar dis wat.
Next up here are Chuck Grobler and Niels van der Venter in the Cruiser 100 4.5, which sounds pretty fine. Let's see how far the heavy 100 gets. That was impressive, considering the girth of the big cruiser. Wouter Krier and Kirby van Niekerk's Cruiser V8 Bakkie should do well here, with all them horses under Wouter's right foot. And they start off on a flyer. But they also come short. It looks like this big dune has the measure of all the teams. Over to the Datsun lads then. And here's Barend Leroux and Hardus Oosthuizen in their powerful V6 diesel Navara with a 7-speed automatic gearbox. And off they go. Over to last chance man Van der Toy in the Nissan Patrol, with the little secret attachment under the Nissan's bonnet. Come on, Van. If anyone can do it, you can do it.
Can you believe it? A trolley motor.
Don't worry, Van. We won't tell anyone about the supercharger.
It went unbelievably, extremely well. It's a quite heavy vehicle this, but it's I think one of the most underrated vehicles on the road.
For the next challenge, tour leader Jacques Delporte in his Toyota 2.8 GD6 showed the drivers the line. Here the teams have to aim down a steep dune, head up the next climb, which has 2 steps, then over a sharp crest, down into a bowl, and up the last steep climb. This is a more technical type of test, and the drivers have to know when to plant the accelerator and when to ease off a wee bit. The lads in the Nissan Navara line up first. The V9X certainly has the power. On this dune though, it's a bit more tricky than just flooring it. And that's a job well done. Barend and Hardus completed the test without any issues. Time to head to the shops. On the other side, we see how the rest of the drivers handle this huge heap of sand. Welcome back to the battle. Next to tackle the obstacle is Heinrich and Gene in the Ford Ranger. Remember, here you need just the right amount of momentum, not too fast and not too slow. Oh dear, that was just too slow. So Heinrich has another run at the dune. But that's also too slow. And another one. Dearie me. Looks like the momentum trick is managing to elude Heinrich's right foot. In the end, he decides to take the escape route and to take the fight to the next round. The big Cruiser 200 is next, and Jaco and Arno easily make it up the first climb. Now just for that last dip and the steep climb. Jaco nails the Cruiser. That was a bit too fast, but they make it up the dune safely enough. Martin and Karel tackled this test in their Cruiser bakkie. And clearly they've been paying a lot of attention over the previous few days, and they sail through the challenge no worries. Here is Van der Toy's gargantuan Nissan Patrol, and it's rather stuck. Yep, just when you think you're the boss of the Namib, and kind of gives you an option to, well, pick a finger. Not that a Patrol ever gets stuck, of course.
You know the Patrol, that actually never happens. But unfortunately, this sand is not Patrol's friend, and we got stuck. As you can see, the wheel's underground. But we'll get it out.
A Patrol never gets stuck, says Van. Well, this one's so stuck, it requires all hands on deck to dig it out. And while the lads all dig to extract the Patrolli, any guesses which rugby team Van supports? He seems to be quite passionate about that. But all's well that ends well, and soon tour guide Jacques Delporte had the Nissan out of its sandy hole. Meanwhile, the battle challenge wasn't quite done yet. Here, Van and his souped-up Nissan make light work of a very tricky dune with several steps. Chuck and Niels are next in the great-sounding Cruiser 100. Oh dear. In the process of getting up that dune, the left front tyre had de-beaded, so time for another bit of Namib mechanics. After the heavy Cruiser 100 was hoisted into the air, Jacques had a cunning plan to get the tyre back onto the rim, with a can of deodorant. The deodorant is sprayed into the tyre, a bit of flame is added to the equation, and voila, tyre back on rim. So the teams continue to the coast, to finally arrive at a serene sundowner spot. And if your name is Nico Chuck Grobler, you remove all your garments, walk into the Atlantic Ocean, and scare all the sharks into submission. If you are like, well, normal, you take your camping chair and park it in the calm, cool waters and have a dop. At least all the sharks were hiding in Walvis Bay. And when the sun is heading to the horizon, you try to grab onto it some. It's a magic place, this Namib. To the last day then, and the last big obstacle. With only two teams competing now, and Chuck and Van feeling quite at home in the sand, event organizer Werner Skarp decided to throw one last curveball, a scary business of dipping into a hole at speed, and at a peculiar angle. Then a steep, soft climb up the other side. The camera angle doesn't do this gradient justice, it really is a scary challenge. Van's Patrol tackles the challenge first, and just watch the supercharged Datsun go. And he's up and over. In the cabin, back on a flat section of sand, Van was shaking, literally.
That was now seriously extreme 4x4. Quite adrenaline rush, and I'm very proud of this vehicle.
Chuck, in the Cruiser 100, could not let this challenge go unanswered, of course. And he's lost his shirt too. To save some extra weight, I think. Up he goes. Oh no, the 100 has run out of steam. He tries again. But still no cigar. and a third attempt. Nope, still no cigar. And finally a fourth attempt, and this time he tackles that climb at a good rate of knots. But again, the heavy cruiser runs out of horses, says Chuck afterwards, philosophically.
Some battles you win, some battles you lose. This is a very tough one. The sand is very, very loose. And this time of day it's hot, there's loose sand. We just managed not to get enough revs there.
And so this round of the Battle of the Dunes was done, suitably capped with a braai on the beach. And a prize giving. Nico, Chuck Grobler and Niels van der Venter finished in second place overall and bagged a set of Tough Dog shock absorbers, courtesy of Opposite Lock. But the winner was no surprise. Farn and his powerful Nissan Patrol was the undisputed champ of this round of the battle. He won a cool trophy and a Snowmaster fridge freezer system. And that's it for this round of the Battle of the Dunes. See you soon for some more Namib desert action. Till then.